Hello, everyone. Good morning. Okay, yeah, I think this might be your first session for the day for some of you here. So first of all, thank you so much for joining our session here. I am Kiran Kumar Chandrasekhar, Senior Solutions Architect for Strategic Accounts within AWS. And then guess who my customer is? Amazon. Again, we both are colleagues. We are Amazonians, but then we are on the stage today. So I'm representing AWS, the AWS account team, and then my co-speaker is representing as our customer here, so a unique relationship between AWS and Amazon. So if you go back in time, right, AWS evolved from Amazon. And today, Amazon is using AWS services. And among that, Q Developer is one of those services. And we are going to talk about Q Developer adoption journey with Prime Video. So I will let Lilia introduce herself. Okay.
Thank you, Kiran. Good morning, everyone. I am Lilia Bayburova, and I am Product Manager for Developer Experience with Prime Video. Like other Amazon businesses and products, Prime Video uses AWS services throughout our software development lifecycle, from researching and prototyping to building, testing, and deploying, all the way to running our production workloads at massive scale. So today, we're very excited to be here to share our journey of Q Developer adoption. And thank you all for coming here. I know there's a lot of other sessions you could have chosen, and Swami's keynote is going on at the same time, so I appreciate you making the time. A quick look at the agenda. We will start with how Amazon teams use Q Developer across different software development lifecycle phases. Then I will take you on a journey of how we implemented Q Developer adoption in Prime Video over the course of the last year. And finally, we'll dive into how Amazon used Q Developer feature Q Transform to upgrade JDK for thousands of applications in a fraction of time and with a much smaller team than it would have taken otherwise. When most of us hear Amazon, we think about the retail giant, first and foremost. Perhaps some of you did some online shopping last Friday to take advantage of the Black Friday sales. Yes, Amazon did revolutionize e-commerce, but it also revolutionized so many other industries: cloud computing, entertainment, home automation, logistics. We now finally have drone delivery. Our company keeps pushing the boundaries of what's possible to bring better experience to our millions of customers worldwide. At the center of Amazon's relentless pace of innovation is our focus on speed and agility. Our ability to rapidly build, launch, and iterate is what sets Amazon apart. And what's behind this rapid innovation? It's thousands of developers. As the product manager for developer experience, I see developers as my main customer at Amazon. My team obsesses over developer experience and developer productivity metrics, like deployment velocity, average number of code reviews. We also use surveys to hear directly from developers about the biggest pain points and opportunities to improve tooling and developer experience. And I'm going to share a statistic that recently blew my mind with you all. Did you know that, on average, developers reported being able to code less than 1 hour a day? It's shocking, right? This statistic comes from, it's not an Amazon-specific metric. It comes from the industry research survey that's conducted by software.com. But I think it highlights a common pain point across many companies. And maybe some of you resonate with this as well. As a product manager for developer experience, I want to help flip this ratio. And so instead of spending majority of productive time on tasks like writing boilerplate code, unit tests, operational tasks, we want to enable developers to spend more time in the flow, creatively solving problems with code. This is where Q Developer comes in. It can help us reduce the burden of undifferentiated tasks, as well as get the most of the time that developers do spend writing code. And with that, back to Karen.
Thank you, Lilia. So Lilia actually, spoke about giving back time to developers so that they can innovate and then write creative solutions, right? So Q Developer, comes handy. It supports all your development tasks, including building on AWS. It has knowledge about AWS services and 17 years of AWS knowledge, best practices, and well-architected guidance. It helps developers and IT professionals to be more efficient, knowledgeable, proficient by integrating seamlessly into their application development lifecycles. From writing code or performing advanced code upgrades in the IDE, or chatting about architectural best practices on the AWS console, the AWS documentation, or on the Q chat on the IDE, Q Developer comes handy. So introducing Q Developer. Again, I did not introduce. I think most of you here might have gone to other sessions and heard about Q Developer. And even in the past few days, you have even heard about some of the new features were released for Q Developer. So other thing that I want to mention is from day one, when Q Developer, as a service was released, it actually came with security and privacy in mind. And it makes easier for organizations to trust and safely use generative AI-based tools. With that, let us actually, talk about Amazon and SDLC, right? So Amazon is no different in using software development lifecycle, like what the other industries traditionally use. So traditional software development lifecycle need to be improved, as it currently requires developers to manually write thousands of lines of code and spend time debugging. So again, we want to flip the equation, right? So let's actually see how a typical software development lifecycle looks like. It starts from planning phase, where developers spend time in finding what tools to use, what services to use, what technology to use, and then they start their planning. And I think, how many of you are SDEs or developers here who write code? Okay, I see quite a few hands here. So you might actually spend time writing code, right? But do you spend all your time writing code, or do you all do other tasks? Right. That is where we want to flip the equation, right? So if you see all these other stages in software development lifecycle, this seems to be more familiar to you. You might be spending time even there. For example, other than writing millions of lines of code, you spend writing tests, unit tests, integration tests, and also make sure that your code is secure. And when your application goes operational, you want to make sure that your application is serving for your end users, right? Or if there are issues, you end up debugging that and spend time there. And finally, maintenance and modernization, right? So this is actually a time-consuming task. So if you want to upgrade your languages, frameworks, it's really a time-consuming task. Can we actually automate all these? I think to a certain extent, I don't want to say you can automate everything, but to a certain extent, you can actually automate these and then accelerate your development lifecycle and give back time to developers to create awesome and creative solutions to cater our customer needs in a faster way. So I said faster way, right? This is what our founder and executive chair for Amazon, Jeff Bezos, a visionary, he said long time back. He said this: speed matters in business. Plus, a high-velocity decision-making environment is more fun, too. Wow, right? Speed. So what is the importance of speed in Amazon's SDLC? Speed matters at Amazon. Rapid development cycles are critical to Amazon's competitive edge. Rapid innovation fuels customer obsession. Amazon continually refines its processes to maintain speed at scale, and then faster iterations allow Amazon to quickly address customer needs. Customer needs are very important. We have to actually cater those needs. We work backwards. That is actually there in Amazon's DNA. So whatever work we do, we actually work from the customer. So from the customer, right, for us. Amazon also is our customer. So we take feedback from them just like other customers sitting here. Accelerating time to market. This is so important, right? Speed deployments enables Amazon to lead market trends. market is going very fast, so there is competition. So you have to make sure that you're accelerating time to market and scaling with agility, right? So Amazon continually refines its processes to maintain speed at scale. It's a continuous process. They keep on, making progress towards changing their process, improving their process to maintain proper SDLC lifecycle. With that, right, to be a force multiplier for speed in Amazon's SDLC, Q developer comes to Amazon's advantage. As you see in the the image here, right? So speed with quality and then efficiency, right? They go hand in hand, and then Amazon tries to balance that, but it also tries to keep the development, development phase cost less. It tries to do that, but then if you see the weighing there, we'll not compromise with quality, efficiency, just because we want speed. We want to maintain that as well. So with that, right, what are some of the challenges in accelerating SDLC? This might be common to other industries as well, but this is typically what's seen in Amazon. Cross-functional coordination, aligning diverse teams and processes across Amazon's operations. I'll actually come to what's there in that image. I want to talk about the challenges and then actually get to that image if you're curious about that, because that popped up early. Purposely, I put it first so that I want people to keep staring at that. Infrastructure complexity, right? Managing a vast, intricate technology landscape efficiently. Amazon is very big. So even the technology and the infrastructure is very vast. It's too big. So it's not that easy to manage Amazon at scale because there are thousands of teams working on thousands of applications. Testing at scale, so ensuring thorough testing despite rapid development cycle. Visibility and governance, right? Balancing speed with control and compliance requirements. Yes, you have to actually, comply to your compliance. If not, it's very difficult to, accelerate in your SDLC, right? So even for accelerating the SDLC here, Q developer comes to Amazon's advantage. So as I said, you might be curious about the image there, right? That image is nothing but if you actually put all internal Amazon services powering Amazon.com on a map, it looks like this. Cluster of services, cluster of interconnected services. So all I wanted to show here was how complex it is, right? So this illustrates thousands of interconnected services, each with its own development cycle. Amazon follows a two-piece model. So this actually shows there are thousands of interconnected services with its own development cycle. And this interconnectedness amplifies Amazon's challenges, particularly in coordination and testing. So let's see how Q developer, helps Amazon or is helping Amazon even today. I don't know if there are any Amazon developers here. They might be using Q developer. So the first and foremost, right, typically software development lifecycle starts from the planning phase. Q developer is available on the AWS management console, AWS documentation website, and Amazon developers, start from there. They start asking questions about AWS services, what best to use, and then start their AWS planning journey from there into what infrastructure can I use for my use case. And then you have Q developer chat for conversational coding, right on your IDE. Without losing your focus, you can ask questions about AWS services, AWS infrastructure, and then if you want to connect your business plans, right, there are teams within Amazon that have created their knowledge bases within Q for business to strategically align their business objectives with their project planning, with their technology planning for whatever new technology they want to build. So this gets into their planning phase. And then all these are done by leveraging natural language prompts and interactions. So you need not actually completely put technical details or more details there, because in natural language, you can ask Q, and then you can align these forces together and use Q as force multiplier and do your planning efficiently. We can see an example here, right? You can see in this video. It's a simple question. Hey, I want to build a web app on AWS. So what are my options? So Q actually gives you, different options because there is more than one way to build a web app, right? Now, based on your business needs, since you're doing the planning, you can choose whichever option is optimal for you. You can ask questions and get guidance from 17 solid years of AWS knowledge, best practices, and well-architected advice Q developer has. Next, moving to the create phase. Again, I think this is the fun part. I think most of the time, ideally, should be spent here by developers. So Q is like a coding companion in IDE and CLI. So even I code, even as a solution architect, I'll have to build proof of concepts, right? So recently, I built a tool. I was able to build the tool in less than 4 hours. Let's actually think the days without Q developer, right? I would have taken a week or more to create that. So I'm a live example here as to how I was able to accelerate my own SDLC cycle in the create phase while building that tool. Q has an intelligent agent that can simplify your coding task, boost your productivity with automation. It can write code for you. So Amazon developers use Q developer agent for writing code with automation and then get smart suggestions. Conversational coding, again, you have a piece of code or you have an existing code, you want to understand. Okay, this was written by somebody else, so think about spending time in reading somebody else's code. It might have been written 10 years ago or 5 years ago, right? So it's time consuming. So for that, Q can actually help you summarize what's there in that code base and then everything in natural language and especially when it comes to customized suggestions, provides tailored recommendations based on Amazon's code base. This improves code quality and accelerates development. So customization is one important feature that most of the Amazon teams use. So when Lilia talks about Prime Video's journey, you'll hear more as to how customizations actually helped Amazon Prime Video. So here is an example, right? So Q is actually, if you see for the first example there, Q is able to create AWS infrastructure with auto-completion. In the second example, in the bottom left side there, that is actually taking the prompt as a comment to build a Lambda function. You can see how Q developer is able to do the code completion, right? And the next example there is Q on the CLI in action. So you can use Q to autocomplete your CLI, your terminal commands on Linux, and also take Q's help in building shell scripts. And finally, Q is available as your conversational assistant on your IDE, where you can ask questions in natural language. So it's a question that's been asked there is create a CDK stack for a CloudWatch event rule, right? You ask that, and then Q gives you the code. And then it can be a boilerplate code. Again, if you tailor your prompt properly, again, I don't want to get into prompt engineering because that's a vast subject. So there might be other sessions. So I recommend you to go and get a glimpse of prompt engineering, which is very important in GenAI world today. Next comes test and secure. How many of you write unit tests? After writing your code, you have to write, or else it's not that easy to ship your code. So Q is helps you. It's an AI-powered creation of comprehensive unit tests. Amazon developers do use unit tests. So anecdotally speaking, I had a conversation with one of the software engineers recently, in the past 2 weeks. They actually told me they use Q to generate unit tests for their product that they wrote. And then Q was even able to identify some very important edge cases, which the software development engineer might have missed if they had manually thought about, have I covered 100% of my unit tests? So they were able to go from less than 50% unit test coverage to 100% within few hours. That's a game changer when it comes to generating unit tests using Q developer. Integration test generation, again, in similar fashion, teams actually try to create automation of integration test scenarios, identify that, and then catch all those earlier in the development lifecycle. Security scanning, like I said earlier, Q developer comes embedded with a security scanner. This identifies vulnerabilities in the code and provides guidance in addressing issues and enhancing overall software securely. Here is an example of test and secure, where Q developer automatically said, hey, you have a password hard-coded. This is not a proper secure pattern. So you can also remediate that. And if that is still not helpful, right, you can ask Q chat, hey, this is my code. Can you actually optimize this? Q will right away help you that and then Teams are actually making use of that. Now, during the operation phase, this is when your application, goes live, and then developers spend time in troubleshooting errors. So without getting out of your IDE, you can build your code locally, and then if you're finding errors, you can ask Q right away, hey, I'm getting this error, can you please help me? And then Q helps you right away there in troubleshooting errors. Debugging and optimize your code with conversational coding. Again, everything in natural language. So once I was executing a Python script, and then it was giving me errors. So I need not actually had to step out of my IDE and then search on the browser. I was able to ask you and able to resolve that in few seconds. So there are Amazon teams that are efficiently able to debug their code right away on the IDE. And optimize your AWS resources and costs. This is available on the AWS console, where you can do right sizing of EC2 instances as an example, and then teams do this. And this can also be part of lateral planning phase. Let's say you have evolved for some time and you want to actually optimize your infrastructure. So you can do that today because Q can understand your resource usage. And again, here is an example of operation phase where Q is available on the Lambda console, and you can troubleshoot right away there. If you find an error, and then you say troubleshoot with Q, and then Q can guide you in right direction in resolving that error. And finally, maintain and modernization phase. So in this stage, Q developer agent for code transformation helps you upgrade your language framework. So later in today's session, I'll be talking about how Amazon strategically was able to migrate from JDK 8 to JDK 17 in very short amount of time, and how they executed this strategically across the organization. So we'll come to that. But then you can see a simple example here, right? You can also see how Q developer agent for code transformation also, gives you a plan. Hey, these are the changes that I'm making. This is your code base, and then these are the steps that I took to make changes. Do you want to make a commit? You can actually take those changes, make a commit, and then go through your CI/CD process. So here is a example. You can also see proposed changes that Q is actually showing. So if you have not tried this feature, please go try. And I think in the past few days, not just for JDK migration, there was also .NET migration and mainframe modernization agents were, code transformation agents were released. I think one of them is in preview. So I recommend you to go and test that feature if your organization needs that, because Amazon has taken advantage of that. But then before going to that story, I'm going to hand it over to Lilia in talking about Prime Video's Q adoption journey. It's a wonderful journey. You'll actually hear about that now. Over to Lilia.
Thank you, Karan. Before we dive into sharing our adoption journey story, I want to tell you a little bit about Prime Video scale and innovation that goes on in Prime Video. Prime Video is not just big, it's massive. We're talking about millions of subscribers across over 200 countries. In addition to our vast catalog, linear, and live sports offerings, we also offer over 100 paid add-on subscriptions. And all of this is available across thousands of different client devices. For the sports fans out there, you may be familiar with Thursday Night Football. That's a weekly occurrence of a live event where millions of people tune in and expect to stream seamlessly, and it just has to work. Beyond Thursday nights, last week we streamed our second successful Black Friday night football game. And the kicker there is that it has to go on at the same time while Amazon.com is supporting the biggest retail day of the year. So what is behind making all of this work? It's thousands of developers working tirelessly to keep everything running smoothly and continually innovating and creating new features for our customers. Speaking of innovation, with the emergence of generative AI technology in the last year, our teams have been constantly experimenting and have launched multiple customer-facing features in the last year that leverage this technology. For example, personalized microgenre carousels. These use deeper content understanding to curate a highly personalized set of recommendations organized around a very specific topic. For example, wild wonders of the world in this image, or if your household is more like mine, you might see sci-fi shark movies pop up as a carousel suggested on your Prime Video app. Another feature that we recently launched, and is one of my favorites, is X-ray recap. This feature uses LLMs to generate an easy-to-digest summary of an episode or a full season. And I personally love it because when the second season comes out, I usually completely forgot what happened in the first season, and so this helps me catch up. We also enhance customer experience in search with Gen AI-powered search results, and we use AI to optimize and stream highest quality picture image to our customers. We knew that there was an opportunity to leverage generative AI technology to improve our developer experience as well. So a year ago, we started a Gen AI for developer tooling program within Prime Video. This included trialing Amazon Q Developer. So let's dive into this journey. And just a side note, working in Prime Video, one of the things I love to do is sprinkle characters from our original shows as cameos. So maybe some of you will recognize some of the protagonists on the next few slides. We started our Q Developer adoption as an apprentice of sorts. Amongst the many developer tools available to Prime Video engineers, including specialized IDE plugins, profilers, code scanners, Q Coding Assistant was the newest one. And we didn't know at the time the full power of its capabilities. Did Q really have superpowers, or was it more of a shiny demo? So in order to start small and experiment, we recruited a pilot of about 100 developers. These teams installed the tool, and we kicked off a facilitated set of adoption sessions, doing a little bit of training on prompt engineering and best practices. The use cases that teams naturally used early on were pretty basic, primarily around generating unit tests. It was really handy for that early on. And I'll be honest, our engineers in Prime Video were a mix of curious and skeptical. They're a smart bunch, and they're not about to adopt a new tool without putting it through its paces first and giving us lots of feedback. But even in these early phases, we saw results. In our exit survey from the pilot, engineers consistently reported gains in productivity for tasks like Java docs generation and unit test generation. And we also learned that teams that did facilitated adoption sessions with examples grounded in their code base and prompt engineering tips had better outcomes. This was encouraging, and just real quick, I guess when we do talk about software development lifecycle phases, in this stage, we primarily used it just in the test phase. So we didn't really start from the beginning. We didn't necessarily start with everyone going onto Q Console and using it for planning. Testing is where we found it useful early on. But encouraged by these early results, we did expand the program and moved it from the limited pilot to a limited adoption phase. As any good apprentice, be it a superhero, a spy, or an AI coding assistant, Q learned quickly. We saw regular model upgrades that we found to improve results in terms of accuracy and suggestion acceptance rates. We also leveraged Q customization feature early on. This let us train Q on the vast Prime Video code base. And this meant that instead of getting generic suggestions, we were now getting recommendations tailored to our code base and our best practices. We also saw that the use cases now expanded. Engineers were increasingly using Q chat and Q inline autocomplete for use cases ranging from infrastructure as code to business logic generation to tests, both in terms of integration and unit tests. During this period, we also saw that the suggestion acceptance rate is one of the metrics we track. It went up by about 30% with the improved models and the customization. This success helped us expand towards the limited adoption phase to even more developers. And so as we kind of went on along our adoption journey, we really started seeing Q Developer being very helpful across both the creation, writing the code more efficiently for business logic, as well as the testing phase. Q Developer kept maturing as a product by improving its models and adding more features that were really helpful to Prime Video developers. For example, workspace level context allowed customization-like features in QChat. So that improved the accuracy of when developers used QChat for optimizing code and debugging. Q Code Transform helped us streamline upgrades of JDK across hundreds of applications within Prime Video. Q CLI was a new feature released last summer to bring AI assistance to shell scripting. I think Kiran had a little demo of that. And with all of this, we saw that developers started using Q across more complex use cases, including test-driven development and infrastructure refactoring. With our continuous focus on hearing feedback and conducting surveys with our pilot program, we started hearing quotes like this from our engineers. This is where we knew that Q really had massive potential to transform our development experience. And at this stage, engineers were using Q across operate and maintain phases of software development lifecycle as well, in addition to creating and testing. As Q grew and developed further, and we kept getting more features and model improvements, it became the accelerator not just for development velocity, but also for learning. With customization extending its support to Q Chat, developers could now ask questions in natural language about how Prime Video services and components work, and more importantly, how they integrate with each other. With this, developers started using Q earlier in the software development lifecycle. So when they were planning a new project or figuring out how to integrate with a new dependency, or perhaps just onboarding onto a new code base after joining a team, they would start with asking Q first before going to search for the right contact to set up a one-on-one through Slack or wikis. This wasn't only beneficial to junior engineers either. Recently, we heard from one of our senior software developers that when he had to learn a new programming language for a project, he used Q to familiarize himself with the new coding constructs quicker without leaving the flow of the IDE. And more and more, developers started using QChat for brainstorming ideas about different architectural approaches or AWS services to use. We also expanded beyond coding knowledge base to setting up Q business instance that tapped into our non-coding vast knowledge, such as wikis and documentation, so that we could have that resource as well. Between the positive feedback from our developers in the surveys, as well as the fact that we started seeing meaningful improvements in metrics like development velocity and code change velocity, we've decided to expand our limited adoption phase to org-wide push for adoption. And so at this stage, we had Q being useful to our teams across all stages of the software development lifecycle. And just to summarize, so far our journey with adopting Q for our software development lifecycle has been transformative, but I think it's far from over. Today, our developers do report savings across a range of tasks via surveys. And surveys, as I mentioned earlier, is the key to running an effective software developer experience program. But of course, metrics are important too. And we do obsess over metrics like development velocity and code change velocity. And we've seen increased results there as well, both for teams as well as individuals post-Q developer adoption. We also track more product-specific metrics to work closely with Q developer team and give feedback there as well. So as I mentioned earlier, suggestion acceptance rate is something that gives us a sense for out of 100 of different recommendations that Q would generate, how many do teams or developers actually accept. And that has been going up as well with improvement in models and context available to Q. And finally, what's probably even more important is from our interviews, we hear that engineers are now able to be more productive and spend more time in the flow because of reduced context switching, and they can achieve more from within the IDE by using the QChat autocomplete and also in their shell scripting using QCLI, so without having to switch constantly between different browser tabs as they perhaps research a question for an answer for a technical question. So in conclusion, like I mentioned, we think this transformation is not over. We're still on a journey. And as Prime Video continues to push the boundaries of what's possible in streaming, and AWS continues to push the boundaries of what's possible with AI, generative AI coding assistant, we expect to continue to using more and more of these features to improve the efficiency with which our teams innovate in Prime Video. And I'll just leave you with a few quotes from our engineers from the surveys that we run. And with that, I'll pass it back to Karen. Thank you.
Thank you, Lilia. That was a wonderful journey, right? So this is how I actually say about Prime Video story, right? Q earned Prime Video's trust. They were skeptical in the beginning, and it seemed weird. Oh, okay, why did you not start from the planning phase? Because traditionally, in SDLC, stages, you start from planning phase. But that actually means that they were already into, the software development lifecycle stages. The developers were already leveraging that. I think they got a chance to, start from generating unit tests. Q earned its trust, and then they got it evolved around all other software development lifecycle stages, and then they're continuing to use that. So this is a wonderful journey. So thank you so much for talking about your journey there. With that, right, the last topic that I want to talk about is strategically, how did Q Developer help Amazon with JDK migrations? You all might have actually seen the post from our CEO, Andy Jassy, right? So post actually said, Amazon saved 4,500 years of development work and $260 million in annual cost savings with respect to performance that they gained from Q code transformation. So basically what happened was this is one of the powerful capabilities of Amazon Q Developer in automating Java version upgrades in a fraction of time. So earlier this year, Amazon integrated the Java transformation capability into their internal systems, and then were able to migrate tens of thousands of their production applications from older versions of Java 8 to Java 17. And these are the metrics that you see, right? 4,500 years of savings, and then $260 million of annual cost savings with the performance gain. So I'll actually show you an example of what the performance metric for one of the critical application really look like. But then, just because Q transformation has a feature to perform Java upgrades, did Amazon consider to strategically have a program? No. They knew what was the issues with application maintenance and upgrade. Right? It's time consuming, and teams need to upgrade apps from unsupported languages. It creates tech debt, and then developers want to reduce undifferentiated tasks, right? We want to flip the equation. We want to actually use automation as much as possible, wherever possible, and then legacy apps pile up, and then it takes a lot of dev efforts. I think this is a knowledge that we have gained. So then Amazon thought, fine, yes, let us actually use Q transforms and see how it can actually strategically do this. So what are some of the advantages of migrating to Java 17 from Java 8, right? This was also one of the key considerations. Increased performance, improved security because the language version is actually different, it is new, and then they have better language level enhancements, integration with modern toolkits, libraries. You want to modernize, come on, you have to use new frameworks, right? You can't actually keep using legacy frameworks. And then you have, first and foremost, the long-term support, which is essential for any product or any technology that you use. And extended APIs and libraries, because you can make your code even more efficient. And then, of course, community and resources support for Java 17 is more when compared to Java 8. So by evaluating all these, right, okay, fine, let us actually not think about doing this manually. Let us automate this. Let us use queue transforms. So what is the effort that it takes if you want to do this manually, right? You need to do extensive research. You need to go read, a lot of documentation, gain knowledge on how code looks like when you want to move from Java 8 to 17, right? And then you start writing code. You actually start updating code from what it looks like in Java 8 to Java 17. And not just that, you will have to even update your dependencies, right? You will have to read about that as well. That is also, a time-consuming task. And after that, you need to have your code for review, and then your code should be buildable, and then, of course, you need to be able to, test that. And finally, wherever in this stage, right, if you have any errors, you will have to debug, and then you will have to troubleshoot because you want to succeed. And then you'll again go back to research. You'll have to go read the documentation like, why did I get this error? How can I get rid of this error? And then this cycle repeats, right? This actually can eat up a lot of developers' time, if proper time, actual time, which they could have used for writing efficient code and being creative, right? So, on an average, this takes 2 to 4 SDE days per application. Again, one size does not fit all. So if your application is too complex and too big, this can also take weeks. So that's what people, even within Amazon, have told me when I have closely worked with them. So here is a metric on a 5% Amazon team upgraded 1,000 applications from Java 8 to Java 17, and they were able to do this in 2 days. And on an average, this took 10 minutes per application. And then, if for a larger application, it took less than an hour. So this is this came as a game changer when this team actually did this operation, and then strategically Amazon was able to migrate tens of thousands of Java 8 application to Java 17 in very less time. So how does Queue actually do this, right? So now imagine the workflow that I showed to do this manually. So you had to do the research, right? You need not actually do that research because Queue Transform already has that knowledge base. You give your source code, it should be buildable and testable, of course, and then Queue applies its knowledge base, and then again, it'll try to build, and then if there are errors, it leverages GenAI to fix the errors, and then your code is upgraded. Right? The process actually becomes very simple, and then you need not actually get out of your IDE and then go read multiple documentations like you had to do when you do this manually. So Queue Developer in action, right? How does the Queue Transforms work? So let us actually assume that, okay, you have your Java 8 package loaded on your IDE, you have logged into Queue, you have authenticated with Queue, and then what happens is you actually start the agent, Queue transformation agent, /transform is what you type, and then you give some details, and then Queue knows, okay, this is my input source code, fine. It takes the input source code, it transforms, it analyzes, it assesses, and then you have the transform code back. And then let us actually see, and then other thing that I wanted to actually mention is, Amazon was able to do this centrally as well. For some of the applications, centrally Amazon, pulled the code packages, of course, the teams that had authority to do that, and then they created change requests, and then those change requests were, created by making use of Queue Developer Transforms. Now here is a, metric on how the same application performance looked like when it was on JDK 8 and then what happened when it was on JDK 17. You can see the CPU utilization, right? There's a 23.62% improvement with CPU, and then you can also see, the latency got improved and the package build time reduced by 44.8%. Again, This is for one of the critical application, but then we saw a similar trend for all other applications as well when they migrated to Java 17. So if you want to graphically see the latency, right? Again, it's the same application, no changes to the application logic. But then look at the latency improvement. Whatever you see on the left side is the latency spike when application was running on JDK 8, and on the right side is when application was migrated to Java 17. In this way, right, this is the example. Why I'm showing this example is to show that how Amazon actually saved those $260 million with performance improvement by making use of QDeveloper. Again, we could have done this manually, but then it would have taken longer time, right? We could have not done this in a shorter time. With that, I want to actually say thank you to everyone for listening to us all these while, and then thank you, everyone.
Thank you.